Hey everyone, if you've ever felt that dangerous pull towards something you know could burn your whole world down, then stay with me. I'm whispering this because I still can't believe I let it happen. My wife's gorgeous best friend stayed over for a week, and I couldn't resist the temptation. It started so innocently, like nothing more than polite smiles and shared coffee, but God, it cracked open something inside me I thought was long buried. I'm just a regular guy in my mid-30s, married 8 years to my high school sweetheart. We have 2 kids, a mortgage that never seems to shrink, and nights that blur into the same quiet routine. Lately my wife comes home drained from endless deadlines, collapsing into bed before I can even ask how her day was. I feel invisible most evenings. Like I'm just the guy who handles dinner and bedtime stories while the spark we once had slowly fades into background noise. That loneliness sat heavy in my chest, a quiet take I tried to ignore. Then Sophia called. She just ended things with her boyfriend and needed a place to stay while she figured out her next steps. My wife didn't hesitate. Of course she can crash here, she said, already texting back. Sophia has always been the one who turns heads without trying. That long dark hair that catches the light, her effortless smile, the confident way in her walk that makes the air feel warmer. I told myself it was nothing, just helping a friend, when she walked through our door that evening, suitcase in hand, wearing a simple white tank top and faded jeans that hugged her just right. Something inside me shifted, the way the evening light caught her skin, the faint vanilla scent that followed her into the hallway. I felt it like a low hum under my ribs. My wife hugged her tight, laughing about old times, while I stood there trying to act normal, heart already beating a little too fast. The first couple of days felt safe enough on the surface. Morning she'd join me for coffee while my wife rushed out the door with a quick kiss on my cheek. Sophia would laugh softly at my lamed jokes, her eyes crinkling in that warm way that made the kitchen feel smaller. She'd help clear the dishes, our arms brushing accidentally as we reached for the same plate. That brief warmth through fabric sent a quiet spark I quickly pushed down. I told myself it was harmless, just being friendly. The kids adored her instantly, and she'd play with them on the floor, her hair falling across her face as she smiled up at me. But even then, her presence filled the spaces my wife left empty. The way she'd lean against the counter, close enough that I could feel the subtle heat from her body when she passed by. Her scent, vanilla mixed with something fresh like laundry dried in sunlight, lingered after she left the room. I caught myself breathing it in deeper than I should. One evening my wife was buried in work again, texting apologies from the office. Sophia and I ended up alone on the couch, some old movie flickering on the screen. When she reached for the remote, her bare shoulder grazed mine. Just for a second, that innocent touch sent electricity racing across my skin. Hot and unexpected, I froze, pretending to focus on the plot while my pulse hammered. Later she stepped out of the shower, hair damp, wrapped in nothing but a towel that clung to her curves, humming an old college song we both knew. The coconut scent of her shampoo drifted down the hallway, wrapping around me like a secret. I couldn't stop my eyes from lingering. Just a moment too long, my breath caught. I told myself to walk away, to go check on the kids, anything, but my feet didn't move right away. By the end of day 3, I was already replaying those tiny moments in my head when the house went quiet. The soft way she said my name when thanking me for something small. The curve of her smile when our hands touched passing the salt at dinner. At night, I'd lie beside my sleeping wife, staring at the ceiling, guilt twisting in my gut like a knife. Yet the hunger for another accidental brush, another shared laugh, grew stronger. What was wrong with me? This was my wife's best friend. Our home. My family. I kept telling myself it was nothing. Just a harmless flicker of attention and a marriage that had gone a little stale. But deep down I knew the truth. Sophia's laugh pulled at something starved inside me, and every innocent proximity made the air between us feel thicker, heavier with things we weren't saying. And then, on the 4th morning as she poured coffee and our fingers met on the mug handle, she looked up at me with those dark eyes and smiled like she could feel it too. That same forbidden pull. My stomach dropped. I knew right then this week was going to test every ounce of control I thought I had. The days blurred into a quiet rhythm that felt too comfortable, too dangerous. Mornings, while my wife grabbed her bag and murmured something about another late night, Sophia would linger at the kitchen table with me. She'd sip her coffee slowly, legs crossed under the thin robe she sometimes wore, and ask about my day like she actually cared. Her voice had this soft lilt, warm and unhurried, wrapping around simple words until they felt heavy with meaning. I laughed at her stories from the city, the kind that made the room feel smaller, our chairs inching closer without either of us moving them on purpose. One afternoon she helped fold laundry in the living room, the kids napping upstairs. Our hands met over a warm towel, her fingers brushing mine for a heartbeat longer than necessary. The heat from her skin lingered even after she pulled away, and ice where the air between us thickened, like the space refused to let go. I caught the faint trace of vanilla again, mixed now with the clean scent of fresh cotton, and my chest tightened. She smiled shyly, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear, and whispered, "You're really good at this domestic stuff." Her breath carried the words too close, grazing my ear like a secret. I muttered something lame about practice making perfect, but inside my thoughts were already spiraling, wondering how her laugh would sound if I leaned in just a little. By evening, the house felt charged whenever my wife was gone. Sophia would stretch out on the couch after dinner, bare feet tucked under her, the hem of her shorts riding up just enough to draw my eye before I frisked it away. We'd talk about nothing and everything. Her ex, my job stress, old memories from college parties where we'd all been carefree. Her eyes would hold second to long, dark, and knowing, and I'd feel that forbidden gravity pulling harder. The way her chest rose and fell with each quiet breath, the soft flush on her cheeks when she caught me staring. It left me breathless, ashamed of how alive it made me feel after years of routine numbness. Night hit like a slow wave I couldn't outrun. The kids were in bed, my wife texting from the office about crashing at her desk again. Sophia and I ended up in the dim kitchen, sharing a late snack. She reached past me for a glass, her body so close I could feel the warmth radiating through her thin top, her arm grazing my side. That innocent contact sent a jolt straight through me, hot and electric, making my pulse thunder in my ears. I didn't step back. Her scent enveloping me like a warm fog, vanilla and something sweeter, like summer skin after rain. I told myself to move, to break the spell, but my body betrayed me, rooted in place by the ache of wanting what I couldn't have. She turned slightly, her face inches from mine, lips parted as if about to say something innocent. Instead, her eyes dropped to my mouth for a fraction of a second, and the air crackled with everything we weren't admitting. My mind screamed warnings. This is your wife's best friend, your home, your life, but the hunger drowned it out, whispering that one more shared glance wouldn't hurt. Yet deep down, I knew it already did. Every accidental touch, every lingering look, was stacking like kindling, waiting for the smallest spark. The next morning, day 5, I woke with her name echoing in my head, guilt gnawing at my ribs even as I replayed the kitchen moment on loop. Breakfast felt heavier, her smile across the table pulling at me like an invisible thread. She passed me the milk, our fingers meeting again. This time neither of us jerked away quickly. The warmth lingered, her skin soft and inviting, sending that same forbidden current racing up my arm. I caught myself imagining how it would feel if I didn't let go, if I traced that softness further. My wife kissed me goodbye distractedly, oblivious, and the door clicked shut behind her, leaving us alone once more. Sophia laughed softly at something the kids said, but her gaze flicked to me, heavy with unspoken questions. I felt the obsession deepening, every detail etching itself into my bones. The way light caught in her hair when she tilted her head, the gentle curve of her neck as she reached for a plate, the quiets as she let out when our eyes locked too long. Lying stiff beside my wife, I'd clench my fists under the covers, fighting the replay of her closeness, the way her presence made the emptiness in my chest roar louder. It was wrong, so painfully wrong, yet the craving grew teeth, refusing to fade. How much longer could I pretend this was harmless? The pull was getting stronger, and I was already slipping. I kept telling myself it was just loneliness talking, that any man in my shoes would feel the same pull after years of coming home to someone too drained to even look up from her laptop. My wife needed space to breathe through her deadlines, I convinced myself, and Sophia was simply filling the quiet with her easy laughter and those knowing glances that made the house feel alive again. It wasn't betrayal if it stayed in my head, right? Just a harmless daydream to get me through the long evenings when the kids were asleep and the only sound was the hum of the fridge. But then I'd catch myself staring at the way her fingers wrapped around a coffee mug, imagining the warmth of her touch lingering longer than it should. I'd remind myself of the vows I'd made, the faces of my children waiting upstairs, the life we'd built brick by careful brick. This is your wife's best friend. I'd think, the one who's always been off limits, the one whose pain from her breakup made her vulnerable in ways I had no right to notice. Yet the ache refused to listen. It whispered that Sophia understood the emptiness I carried, that her soft sighs when we talked late into the night mirrored my own unspoken needs. I hated how easily my resolve melted under her smile each morning, how a single shared look over breakfast could drown out every warning screaming in my skull. The guilt sat heavy in my chest, a constant companion, but it only seemed to sharpen the craving instead of killing it. That fifth night, with my wife already lost to exhaustion in our bedroom, the living room felt smaller, the air thicker. Sophia's voice cracked as she spoke of her ex, tears tracing silent paths down her cheeks in the low lamplight. I meant only to offer comfort when I pulled her close, my arms wrapping around her shoulders with the safest intentions. Her body fit against mine too perfectly, trembling slightly as the sobs eased, and for one fragile second it remained innocent. Then her face tilted up, eyes wide and glistening, and our lips met in a rush of shared breath. Soft at first, tasting of the red wine we'd sipped earlier, desperate in its quiet urgency, the world narrowed to the heat of that connection, the way her fingers tightened on my shirt as if afraid to let go. We froze there, hearts hammering in unison, the forbidden gravity yanking us under. Neither of us pulled away. The kiss deepened instead, slow and trembling, every unspoken want pouring out until the room spun with it. After that, the boundaries we'd pretended existed dissolved like mist. Stolen moments became our hidden rhythm. In the kitchen the next afternoon, while my wife took a work call upstairs, Sophia's hand brushed mine, reaching for the same drawer, lips meeting in frantic silence, the vanilla warmth of her skin flooding my senses and making my pulse roar. Later, with the kids at school, the guest room door clicked shut behind us for what felt like stolen eternity. Her breath warm against my neck, the soft sounds she tried to muffle echoing in my ears like a secret confession. Even once, under the cover of night in the backyard, the cool grass beneath us and stars wheeling overhead, her presence wrapped around me like a fever I couldn't break. Each encounter left me breathless, alive in a way marriage had long forgotten, yet laced with the sharp edge of terror that one wrong sound could unravel everything. The pleasure burned bright, overwhelming, but it carried its own storm. I'd return to my wife's side afterward, her steady breathing a knife of reminder, my skin still humming with echoes I couldn't wash away. Sophia's eyes across the dinner table held mine with that heavy knowing, a silent promise that twisted my stomach even as it quickened my blood. How had something so wrong begun to feel so necessary? The internal war raged louder each day. Stop this before it destroys you, yet the next touch always came, pulling me deeper into the surrender I both feared and craved. I was losing the battle with myself, one whispered moment at a time, and the fall felt inevitable now, sweet and terrifying all at once. The weight of it pressed harder as the days slipped by, every rationalization wearing thinner, every stolen breath carrying the risk of shattering the fragile world I'd built. Yet even as guilt clawed at me, the magnetism between us only intensified, drawing us back again until I wondered how much longer I could pretend control when every fiber screamed otherwise. I felt alive again in ways I hadn't dared to hope for, every hidden glance from Sophia across the breakfast table sending a rush through me that made the ordinary coffee taste sharper, the morning light warmer on my skin. She moved through our house like a secret I was keeping from myself. Her laughter light and easy when the kids asked her to play, Yet her eyes would find mine in those split-second pauses and hold just long enough for the ache to bloom fresh. Bless her exhausted heart, noticed nothing at first, or maybe she was too buried in deadlines to see how my voice softened around our guest, how I lingered a moment too long handing her a towel from the dryer. The benefits whispered promises I clung to. I wasn't invisible anymore, not when Sophia's fingers would brush my arm passing the salt, leaving traces of heat that lingered hours later. But the tension coiled tighter with every shared meal, every casual conversation that carried undercurrents only we could feel, my stomach twisting into knots while my pulse quickened at the danger of it all. The guilt didn't fade. It grew teeth, sinking deeper each time my wife kissed my cheek before bed, her touch familiar and safe while my mind replayed the way Sophia's breath had caught against my collarbone in the dark. I started counting the hours until the kids were asleep or my wife stepped out for another late meeting, hating how my body betrayed me with anticipation. Sophia knew it too. Her smiles turned quieter, almost sad around the edges, as if she could sense the storm building inside me, the way I was drowning in this pull even as I fought to keep my head above water. We spoke less in words and more in those charged silences, the air between us thick with everything we couldn't say out loud. How long before the mask slipped completely? How long before the gravity of what we'd started dragged the whole fragile life under? Then came the last night of her stay, the house settling into its usual quiet rhythm while rain tapped softly against the windows like a warning I refused to hear. My wife had collapsed early again, murmuring something about an early morning call, leaving Sophia and me alone in the dim laundry room folding the last of the linens. The space felt too small, her presence too close, the scent of fresh cotton mixing with that faint vanilla that always undid me. We were laughing about some silly story from her college days when her hands stilled on a shirt, eyes locking on mine with a vulnerability that hit like a wave. I reached for her without thinking, drawn by that same unstoppable force, our bodies pressing together in the narrow gap between washer and wall. Her fingers curling into my hair as mine traced the warm curve of her back through thin fabric, every breath shared and ragged, the world narrowing to the frantic beat of hearts too loud in the stillness. We barely heard the footsteps in time. Thrice calling my name from the hallway, soft with sleep, shattered the moment like glass. We sprang apart, chests heaving, her eyes wide with the same terror flooding mine as I smoothed my shirt and stepped out, forcing a casual tone I didn't feel. She had almost walked in, almost seen the way Sophia's lips were still flushed, the way my hands shook reaching for the light switch. Sophia slipped away to the guest room shortly after, her goodnight barely a whisper, but the look she gave me over her shoulder carried the weight of goodbye and something deeper, an unspoken question hanging in the air between us. Morning brought the end too quickly. I stood in the empty guest room after she'd gone, suitcase wheels echoing down the driveway long faded, the pillow still carrying that faint coconut trace that twisted something raw inside my chest. The room felt hollow now, stripped of the electricity that had filled it, leaving only the echo of what we'd almost been. I sat on the edge of the bed, fingers brushing the sheets where her warmth had lingered hours before, the internal war quieting into a heavy, aching surrender. Crossing that line had changed everything, yet nothing at all. My wife smiled at me over lunch later, oblivious and kind, while I nodded along, the secret burning like a coal I couldn't spit out or swallow. Do I confess and watch, or bury it deep and live with the ghost of her touch haunting every ordinary day? The craving hasn't faded. If anything, the distance only sharpens it, pulling at me in quiet moments when the house feels too still. I wonder sometimes if she feels it too, wherever she is now, or if I'm the only one left carrying this storm. Either way, the fall lingers, bittersweet and unresolved, a silent confession I whisper only to the empty air. What if we'd never stopped?